My name is Jeanette Falk, and I'm going to describe a participatory design research project where we reflect on how we set up a PD workshop and what we learn from facilitating this workshop. The contribution is 4 lessons that we identified for designing diverse pathways for participation. The PD workshop was part of an overarching research project in which we explored the broader framing of diversity computing, and we focus on how to put diversity at the core of a participatory design process. Generally, diversity computing, or DIVCOM for short, is a framing which encourages alternatives to technology that is not designed to consider the diversity of people, but frames interaction in a uniform and rigid way. Instead, DIVCOM suggests interactive technologies that are designed to address the diversity of people in meaningful ways. The goal of our overarching research project, called Diversity Computing Spaces, was then to explore how we might augment physical spaces with technology, which is designed to meaningfully address the diversity of people who use the space and interact with this technology. This goal is motivated by research in PD, which emphasizes that consideration needs to be given to the fact that a group or community consists of several subgroups and individuals who all have different needs and preconditions to participate, and who therefore need to be involved in different ways. Further, Kanstrup and Bertelsen suggest that diversity in PD can be managed by facilitating multiple tempi and paths in participation, in contrast to searching for a uniform type of participation with a fixed rhythm and endpoint. So the particular PD workshop that we present in the paper was preceded by 9 other PD workshops with the same participants who were all the students at a school. All the workshops explore themes of physical spaces, technology, and diversity. Based on our experiences with these 9 workshops, we reflected on how to best engage the different children in participating in PD, and we organized a 10th workshop, the one in the paper. The goal of this 10th workshop was to explore prototypes of DIVCOM spaces together with the children. As a specific setting for exploring DIVCOM spaces, we focused on informal in-between spaces for school children. In this case, a big entrance hall at the school. In that way, we explore spaces where diverse groups of children met, and spaces which then involve complex social dynamics within and between these groups of children. In this space, we set up a participatory design workshop with 2 participating school classes with children aged 11 to 13. The 2 classes had very diverse first language backgrounds. The PD workshop involved 1 class at a time and spanned over 2 days, so we conducted this during 4 days in total, so it was quite a long workshop for the children. There were only a few structured activities during the workshop. Most of the time the children worked on the PD activities on their own, while 4 of the authors facilitated the process and helped the children when it was needed. An important part of the workshop were these 2 setups that we had built before the workshop started. They were placed in the corner of the large entrance hall. They were both meant to inspire the children, and the intention was that the children could extend these setups by building their own prototypes attached to these setups. The first setup consisted of 2 artifacts created with electronic textiles and yarns, a sensory teepee and a finger-knitted net with sensors suspended between 2 columns. The second setup consisted of a space where children were recorded and projected onto a screen in a kind of distorted kaleidoscope pattern, which could be changed with a MIDI controller. It also consisted of movable cardboard floor tiles, which made use of audio frequency induction loops to create sound spaces by interacting with an amplifier and a tablet, and which could be experienced when wearing headphones. So both these setups explore technology in the physical space in different ways. So the children ended up with about 11 ideas in total. And now, coming to the contribution of the paper, we present 4 lessons which we identified. These are balancing acts, facilitating diverse participation in PD workshops, time as a design dimension for diverse participation in PD, considering space for accommodating diverse participation, the role of basic design materials for enabling diverse participation. And for the sake of this presentation, I am going to highlight 2 of the lessons. We wanted the workshop structure, including the time frame, to be flexible towards the participants' own preferred way of participating within the frame of the workshop theme. In terms of time, the workshop was quite long and the children had plenty of time to participate and come up with ideas and designs, but also do things which did not seem to relate to the objectives of the workshop, such as playing and running around in the space. We would notice how the energy in the room would often fluctuate between high and low. And this example illustrates the potential and challenges of having long time frames, in terms of hours, with mostly unstructured time, where the children could work on their own with help from facilitators if needed. A potential challenge with relatively long and unstructured time is that some participants may disengage completely with the activities of the workshop and potentially become bored, which some children told us that they were during the workshop. While boredom is often associated with a negative and even distressing experience, boredom has been linked to positive experiences too, such as reflection, relaxation, trying something new, and creativity. Boredom has, for example, been related to the incubation phase of creativity. During an interview with one of the children, she reflected on how their attempt to overcome boredom sparked an idea that they eventually prototyped. We played limbo first out of boredom, and then she realized we could do it, but not too small, but using several columns. And everything, yes, that fits, we can do that. And then we asked you how it all works with Makey Makey. And then we said, yes, that works, we can do that. We also observed that the long, unstructured time enabled the participants to move back and forth between activities, such as respectively ideating and designing within the frame of the workshop objective, and engaging in high-energy play or chatting in the entrance space. This seemed to work well for varying individual needs, providing some participants with a retreat, while enabling others to maintain continuous participation. Summarizing, we argued that in enabling diverse pathways for participation, PD practitioners should consider time as a design dimension for structuring participation. For example, by enabling enough time for unstructured participation, some participants may choose to engage in other activities parallel to the workshop, such as play, or the unstructured time may lead to experiences of boredom and attempts to overcome boredom, both which have been linked to increased creativity, and which should therefore not be dismissed outrightly. One aspect of having the workshop activities in one big space meant that the different groups and individual children's ideation and prototyping were visible to each other, and that they could freely move between their own spaces, the 2 setups, and the design materials, and interact with each other. From creativity research, we know that cues in the environment, and in our case, the visibility in the space to others' ideas and progress and the backdrop of the 2 setups, can be inspirational. For example, during an interview 3 months after the workshop, one child reflected how they felt creative and also noticed others' creativity. I noticed that I'm actually very creative and that I actually have a lot of ideas that I never really use. Everyone somehow had an idea and presented it, and then you always got new ideas, and I just realized that I actually have a lot of ideas and I didn't know that before. While we observed that the large space offered many opportunities for the children to play together and get inspired by each other, it was also a bit of a double-edged sword, as we also observed how it was disturbing for some. For example, if the room got too noisy or busy. However, in those cases, it seemed to mitigate this disadvantage that the children were then able to move to another calmer part of the space. The four lessons are presented as separate lenses, but they are evidently intertwined and cannot be considered in isolation. They actively need to work together to create diverse pathways for participation. For example, providing enough time may require a certain space and materials to enable some participants to engage in play activities, while others continue their design activity. Further, this may only be possible if the facilitator makes the appropriate choices as part of their ongoing in situ balancing acts, giving some participants the freedom to disengage while keeping others focused on the task. We argue it's quite effective to be actively aware as PD researchers about these different dimensions to facilitate diverse pathways, but also acknowledge that there is a limit to what can be planned in advance. Like with many PD activities, there remains an uncertainty about how engagements unfold, and there's no guarantee to be able to enable all the pathways needed at any particular time. We discuss these lessons further in the paper.